Welcome to the Bernitha Renee Relates podcast. I'm your host, Bernitha Renee. Today's guest is nothing short of extraordinary. She is a world-renowned photographer who has mastered the art of blending creativity with neuroscience, helping people see the resilience in powerful new ways. You've seen her work and story featured on platforms like Oprah, Disney, Sony, Live with Ryan and Kelly, and she and her husband own the inspiring Fiora Studio in Frisco, Texas. And I couldn't think of a more brilliant way to close out season 1 of this podcast than by welcoming the one and only Me Ra Koh. Me Ra, thank you again so much for being here. I am so thrilled to have you here. It is truly a blessing from the Lord.
Thank you. You're so welcome. Welcome.
I know you wear so many hats. You're an author, a speaker, a mama, but so many people know you first through your photography. What makes your photography so different? How does it become a tool for healing?
Yes, my husband and I, we combine neuroscience with photography. We've been photographers for over 20 years, but it was really in 2020 that we felt like God put it on our heart to help people see how strong they are. Then it became this whole journey of how do we do that in a way that has impact? So we started experimenting with different things, and over the last couple of years came up with a whole method. Our whole nonprofit is based off of that, but it is a method that takes you through a full day experience to be able to step into your greatest self, to be able to really see yourself the way God sees you, the way the ones you love and trust see you. Because I think so often we have a disconnect. Like we maybe have like positive statements on our bathroom mirror or mantras and things that we like remind ourselves, whether they're Bible verses or not. But this is really about what Romans 12 talks about in renewing your mind so that you may be transformed. Our team will do calls with their loved ones before they even come in. And so as they're going through hair and makeup, as they're being photographed, we are sharing these words of life that their loved ones have shared with us and how they would describe their resilience. It's the most amazing, magical, incredible experience ever. There's something different about calling out who you are, calling out those qualities and those attributes. And as it is manifesting in you, that is when we're going to take the photo so that you can see yourself every single day on the wall. You see it big, and it is not meant to be like, oh, look at how beautiful I am, but look at how resilient I am. Look at how my joy is still there despite what I've gone through. Look at how strong I am. And it's different for everybody that comes, but in being able to see that every single day, it is literally on a neuroscience level, rewiring what your brain thinks about yourself, how your brain sees yourself. And then from there, like it's crazy the breakthrough that happens for people over the next month of seeing that every day to the next year to 2 years, the stories that we get back, that their starting point has completely changed. Like the level that they start their whole day on has been raised because they don't have to try to think about who is my greatest self. They just see her.
Oh my gosh. I'm down the street. I know there's probably a crazy waiting list, but I'm booking a session. Do you do families too or just individual?
Yeah, we do families. We interview everyone on the phone before the family comes. I think this was the biggest shift for me when God started teaching and pulling Brian and I into doing photography in a different way. Like me as a photographer, it doesn't matter what I say to you and how great you look or how amazing that moment or connection is. What really matters is what your kids said that they love about you, what your spouse says that they love about you. And you are hearing that as we're photographing you. And so not only are we capturing it, but we're recording it in your brain for you to be reminded of it every time you see it. And that is what I think is just so mysterious and life-changing about the brain, that the brain can actually create these new neural pathways that tell you the truth about yourself. You can eventually override all the negative voices and all the craziness that pain or trauma have created in your thoughts and in your minds. And we can replace that with truth, and it shifts and changes your brain.
It just makes me feel emotional because I'm imagining myself being in that studio.
Out of all the incredible moments that you've captured or been a part of, what are some of your absolute favorites? The ones that still take your breath away?
My husband is also a photographer. And so over the years, he and I have collaborated together on photos that I want him to take of me. I've wanted my kids to see the growth that their mom went through over the year. In fact, in my office at home, I have a whole bunch of them on this wall. And for me, it's representative of just milestones that I hit, things that I overcame. And so he clicked the camera, but we would talk about what is the angle? What is the story? What is the purpose? And what do we want this to feel like when you see it? What do we want it to remind you of?
There's this powerful image of you, and you're sitting in this empty stadium. It's just before thousands of women pour into the Sarah Jakes Roberts Women Evolve conference. And they're about to listen to you speak and many other powerful women. In that photo, I could feel the weight of the moment. It made me say, wow, what must that feel like?
I think that's really like the power of photography, right? We can mirror back to ourselves what it is that we need to be reminded of. He took this photo of me where I am like swinging a sword, and it was very intentional for that season that I knew I needed a visual reminder that I am a warrior. I am not a victim. Every day I could look at that on the wall and be reminded of what the truth is. I may not feel that way in the moment, but that doesn't change that that's the truth about me overall, right? We call it the Rising Phoenix experience. The first Rising Phoenix experience was with me. We wanted to know, like, does it work? Like, would it work on me? It's almost like a puzzle that God's been unpacking for us the last 3-4 years. But what we realized is once we had it up on the wall, Brian, a few months later, came to me and he told me, he's like, you don't come to me for encouragement the way you used to. He's like, it's crazy to me. I see you looking at those portraits of who you are on the wall, and I see you encouraging yourself. You don't need me to encourage you in the same way. And that was mind-blowing. It was like, okay, we're onto something here.
I'd love to rewind back for a moment. You're such a light, but I know you've also had some dark times and even spending time in a psychiatric ward. Can you walk us through what led you to go to a psychiatric ward and how God met you even there?
Yes, that was a very pivotal moment. I was 19 years old and I had just gone through so much trauma, so much wreckage. I grew up and I just did not feel safe in many ways from when I was like 9 years old until I left at 18. I mean, you hear that I was worthless. You hear that for almost 10 years, like you have a very broken perception of yourself and sense of self-worth. I went to a Christian university and I was just so excited to be there, to make new friends, start a new chapter of life. And I met an older student on campus who was a leader, who everybody seemed to like. He was funny. And so when he turned his attention on me, I was completely taken off guard. And we eventually started dating. And it was kind of like the first real boyfriend I had that seemed like a dream on the outside and felt like it, honestly, the first few months. And then over time, it became more and more destructive and more abusive. But I didn't leave because it was also so familiar. It fit in so many ways to this low self-worth that I had grown up with. Eventually, we stopped dating. I broke it off, but he felt like God had told him that we were supposed to be married. And so he was very insistent on just one more dinner, one more coffee, one more lunch. And finally, I just gave in. And that dinner was Valentine's night, I think like 33 years ago, maybe. And that night after dinner, he didn't take me back to the dorms. He took me to an abandoned parking lot where he date raped me. That just set off a whole new trauma on so many levels. And I will never forget him taking me back to the dorms that night. And as I got out, like with a smile on his face, saying, "Hey, I'll just give you a call and let's have coffee this week." Like nothing had ever happened. And that just added to the lie that I heard as a kid that I must be crazy. Like, is what's happening really happening or not? I don't understand it. So I kind of went into a shock phase, which is very common. It's called rape traumatic syndrome. And it wasn't until a couple months later that an adult leader came up to me on campus and said to me that you exhibit all the characteristics of someone who's been victimized, who's been date raped. And I'm just wondering if you're okay. It was like I woke up out of a trance and I ended up finding out that I was the fifth woman he had done this to. Two of them were in the junior high that he had done an internship with. And when I asked the pastors why they never said anything, they were like, "Oh, well, we just thought it'd be better for the girls if we just moved on," which is obviously the worst thing you can do. So if they would have reported it, I never would have met him. And so I felt like I need to report this. We need to go to court. This person needs to be stopped before he gets a job as a youth pastor somewhere. And I will never forget not knowing where to go and what to do because school was out and didn't have a dorm room to live in anymore. So I was living out of my car in Seattle parking lots. I was couch surfing. And the thing about rape is it's never about sex. It's about power and control. So that just like infused that by that much more to where he started stalking me, making my life crazy. I would go for a run and he would already be sitting in his car and just like wave at me as I go by. Or I go to a restaurant 45 minutes away with a friend and somehow he would have figured out where we were going and he'd already be sitting in the restaurant at a table. And it was a sense of like, you'll never escape the hold I have on you. So when we went to court, I didn't even know that I needed a lawyer. I represented myself basically. And he brought his whole church and his pastor to be there to pray for him and stand for him. And then I had this woman judge basically tell me that if it was really that bad, why didn't you just get out of the car? And I was denied a restraining order. So the school had to let him back into classes because nothing's been proven guilty. The school is not there for me. The police are not, the courts have dropped the case. And I just started wondering, like, should I really just have never been born? Is my life a mistake? Everything in my life was pointing to those things being true. And school started back up again. And so we had to go to chapel so many times in a quarter to be able to stay enrolled. I will never forget going to this chapel. And this was like probably the turning point that changed everything. There was a speaker there from out of state, and he got up to share. There's maybe 300 of us in this chapel. And he barely introduced himself. He barely even started his talk. And he all of a sudden just stops. And he finally pauses. It's a long, uncomfortable pause. And then he shuffles his papers. Finally, he just closes his folder. And he's like, this doesn't happen to me very often, but I cannot ignore it. I cannot shake it. I just have this feeling so heavy on me that there is someone here who is about to give up on life. And no one's listening to you. No one is believing you. You feel like they can't hear you. But he said, I saw your future and you were inspiring millions of people. Like I just saw that and it was so powerful and so amazing. But you have to get help for yourself because I can tell in my heart, no one is helping you. No one is listening. And so you have to do this. You have to fight for yourself and do whatever it takes to do that. No one knew he was talking to me, but I felt like everyone knew, like a spotlight was on me. And so I'm running out of that chapel. And the guy who had raped me was standing out there with his friends. They all started laughing at me. And I remember going to a phone and calling, because, we didn't have smartphones. So I found a phone and I called my mom and I was like, I need help. And in 2 days, I was packed up and I was flown to California, where I checked into a locked psychiatric ward. And that's what you're referring to, of like being in that place. And I remember standing on the outside of those double doors and a sign on the wall, like locked psychiatric ward. And I remember thinking to myself, why am I going to be locked up when he's the one that should be locked up? He's the one that's crazy and that's out there. And I remember going in and they strip you of everything, anything that you could hurt yourself with, they take away from you. As I realized that the doors were locked, I realized I cannot get out, but he cannot get in. And it was finally like time to heal and feel the safety of that. And so I spent a month there and they were amazing. And they literally unpacked all my pain. And the night I was on the floor that I had that encounter with God that you're talking about, the day before we had to do this exercise as a group where we had to write down everything that we felt responsible for. And I'll never forget being so proud of myself because I wrote down the most things. I wrote down like 157 things that I felt responsible for. Wow. Like so exhausted, the list that I had made. And then all of a sudden they had these like orderlies, these big guys in like their white orderly suits come in with wheelbarrows of sand and sandwich bags. And they said, for everything you've written down, you need to fill a sandwich bag for every single one of those things. And then you need to put it all in this army bag that each of us had our own. And we want you to carry, or in my case, drag this around for 24 hours so that you can get a real visceral, physical, tangible feeling of all that you carry that you are not responsible for. I was there for hours filling up these sandwich bags. Every morning, the team at that psych ward, they would meet, and unbeknownst to us, and they would decide who was ready to tap into their rage, tap into their anger, and they would collectively decide who that patient was and then start to pick at us throughout the day. Well, they could clearly see that I was agitated. They were picking at me until finally, all of a sudden, I just snapped. I took one of those bags of sand and I threw it at the wall and I like yelled something. And then I instantly like shut down and I started apologizing. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I promised myself I would never throw things and get angry that way. And I just fell apart. And I will never forget the therapist getting on the floor with me. And she looked at me and she was like, Mira, there is a time to be sad and grieve, and there is a time to like let out the rage and be angry. And you are here to let out that rage. And that is completely appropriate in this place. And there's no way we can even get to forgiveness until you've really acknowledged how much rage is inside of you over what's happened. And I literally threw every single one of those bags of sand. There was sand everywhere. After doing all that, I was so exhausted. And so it was then that I just collapsed and I was on that cold linoleum floor. And I just felt so broken and shattered. And I remember telling God, I was like, if you can put me back together, because I don't know anyone that's as broken as me in this moment, I promise I will spend the rest of my life telling people that you can do the same for them. But I've got to see you do it for me because I don't know where we go from here with how broken I feel. And I feel like God took that request and was like, deal.
Wow. Beautiful. When in our lives do we ever have an opportunity to just be mad? I don't know if I've ever been given the permission where someone says, let all your rage out and be totally mad. The opposite. It's all about control. Keep yourself under control. Maybe I need to go to a psychiatric ward. I don't know.
Well, honestly, one of the greatest exercises that I left there with that I have done with my kids, I've done with friends, it's such a great exercise, is to go to like a secondhand store, like a Goodwill or something like that, and just buy a stack of plates. You know how they sell like dinner plates? Just buy a stack and go to a parking lot that is somewhat discreet or just anywhere that you can find and just break those plates. It is very, very therapeutic because I feel like when we feel like someone has broken us and we feel shattered, there's something so therapeutic about shattering something else. And that is a very healthy, constructive way to do it because you're not hurting anyone and it's contained, but it also is giving you the chance to let out appropriate anger for whatever trauma it is that you have gone through. And so that's one thing that you can do. And it's a lot cheaper than a psychiatric court.
But I feel like if I'm breaking plates the whole time, I'd be thinking about, I got to clean that up as soon as I'm done. I got to clean that up.
I'm so glad you said that. I think it's really important to go with someone who can help hold the space for you, a good friend who will clean it up for you. Because as they are cleaning it up and as you are taking it in and watching that, I guarantee you God is going to drop something so powerful into your spirit. I don't think you should go alone and I don't think you should be the one to clean it up. I think you should let that friend that you trust clean it up and let God minister to you in that moment what is being said to like your heart in that space. It's really powerful.
Oh my goodness. And that just touched me in a very unexpected way.
It rings with you. I feel like the church has a hard time giving us permission to feel the emotions that are not pretty, right? Whether it's anger, whether it's grief, like those things are so sacred and they're also so messy. And so finding ways to be able to really walk those things through and honor the emotions is critical to us having our own sense of groundedness. Not being able to experience those things is limiting us on some level as well.
That is such an interesting point. As someone who grew up in the church, it's really crazy that it's not a safe place to not be perfect. And you would think it would be the opposite.
Yeah.
In some ways, things are changing. People are more focused on mental health and pain and things like that. As it relates to your pain, what was sort of your turning point in your healing journey? And then how did your faith play a role in rebuilding you?
Yeah. I think that healing journey is like one step forward, 3 steps back. I also think that God is like so gracious and good in that when we are going through deep healing, deep restoration work, I would often find that He would bring me up for air. And I would almost feel like, oh my gosh, things are amazing now. Things are great. And then I like realized God was like, no, I'm just letting you catch your breath. We're going deep sea diving. And then you would just feel undone all over again and just feel like everything being reanalyzed all over again. I think I really started my healing journey at that psychiatric ward in many ways. I was also in a really great church that was very unconventional. Every Sunday morning and every Sunday night was like ministry time and an altar call. And I went up for prayer every Sunday morning and every Sunday night for like 3 years. And they never got tired of me because the spirit of it was, it's not about what I'm going to pray over you. It's about holding space for you to soak in God's presence. And like, what does God want to say to you? So I feel like hearing God's voice, learning to hear His voice was critical for me in that time because I had heard so much death and I needed to hear His voice. That began a whole journey during that time that I never would have expected. God was really saying that I'm big enough for all your emotions. I am not intimidated by your emotions. I am not disappointed in them. I am big enough. And whether you are angry at me or you don't want to talk to me, but you'll let me sit with you, whatever it is, I just want you to be honest with me. And that's what I felt like I was getting from the Lord in the beginning of that faith journey. God just saying, I just want you to be honest with me. I just want you to be honest, because to your point, when we try to put ourselves together and are in the space of perfection, like who can have a conversation with someone who's perfect? Right. Like there's nothing to be gained or learned. But if I'm able to just be as I am, as messy as it is, then I feel like God's like, okay, I have something to work with here. There was just a lot of trauma that would continue throughout life for a number of years. I wish the date rape was the only hard thing that I went through, but life is just not like that. We live in such a broken world. The enemy is so relentless. I realized after a certain number of years that the enemy's assignment on me is to convince me I'm going crazy and that I don't have a voice. And why is that? Why is he trying so hard to shut my voice down?
That's so important.
Right? I really started to drill down into what is the biggest battle I'm facing every day? Could that possibly be the biggest anointing? My husband and I, we have this beautiful practice that we've done for over 30 years. And it's just called 4 minutes. And we just set the timer for 4 minutes. And we don't pray under our breath. We don't pray in the spirit. We just listen. We listen for pictures, for words, for colors, for songs, for verses, for poems, however out of the box God wants to do it. We just give him a chance to speak and just shut up for 4 minutes. And it has really been one of the most powerful healing tools in our life, as well as the most guiding tool of our whole business over the last 20 years. Because every single time we don't know what to do, we set the timer for 4 minutes.
Wow.
I actually wrote a book about it. It's my most recent book, 4 Minutes to Hear God's Voice.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to write it for 30 years. I'll never forget the day God said, okay, it's time. It's time to put this down. And I wrote it in 2 days. I've written and published 6 books, and usually they'll take a year. The first one took 10 years. That one was done in 2 days. Put in all the stories, all the ways that I've talked to you, if your marriage, if your kids, about how to hear my voice. And let's give people access to how unconventional I am, how out of the box I am, and that heaven is dripping with honey, with words of sustenance, pictures, encouragement for us. But so often we don't realize that we actually just have to be quiet so we can hear.
That's so beautiful. It really, truly is.
In your writing, you share a moment about when you saw this light shining through a window onto your cute little daughter, Pascaline. So it seems like it was this really big jumping off point for you. Can you take us back to that place and tell us about what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah. So my first book that was based on my story, Beauty Restored, it was based on my story of having been date raped and God really putting my heart back together. That took 10 years. And so it literally was published the same day Pascaline was born. It was also the first day of spring, and her name means resurrection. And so it was just the whole next chapter of life. When she was 3 months old, we hit the road and we started doing a book tour, speaking engagements. This is almost 25 years ago. Date rape is not a topic yet that has been accepted by society.
Mm-hmm.
So radio shows were very how do you know that you didn't ask for it? And it was pioneering a new space. It was very draining, but there was such a need for it. A year and a half into it, I was speaking at a women's conference in Tennessee, and I was pregnant with our second, and I will never forget feeling pain. Something just felt off. I got home as fast as I could. We got right into the doctor and went into the emergency room and were there for hours. And they finally ended up saying that we cannot find his heartbeat. We don't think that he is still living, and we're going to have to do an emergency C-section. I remember feeling wait, what? this cannot be real. Within 2 days, I was in the hospital with a C-section scar, no baby, milk that was coming in, and I hit like an ultimate low. I had been able to take all the other trauma in my life and find healing and find the testimony in it, work through it with God. But this one, there is no silver lining in this. I just don't understand. And so I stopped speaking, I stopped writing. And for the next year, I just laid on the couch and I stopped going to church during that time too, because by the time the sixth person said to me, well, at least he's in Jesus's arms, he doesn't have to go through the turmoil in this world, I felt like, okay, I need to step out for a while and just heal because this is only making things worse. Her next chapter and Women Evolve with Sarah Jakes Roberts are great examples of a church that knows how to handle pain and hold space for it. But a lot of the church doesn't. And so one afternoon, I was laying on the couch and Pascaline was playing on the floor by herself. She's such a sweet baby. And I'll never forget the afternoon sunlight coming through those French glass doors. And it just landed on her. And she looked so beautiful in that light. I'd never seen light like that. I had this thought, I need to learn how to take a photo of that. And I had wanted to do photography in high school, but I really struggled with a lot of subjects and math was one of them. And someone told me when I was going to sign up for it, well, it's all about like fractions and like shutter speed and all that. So you just better know going into it. So I counted myself out. And I think that for me, it was really this turning point that I will often share with people where that need for healing finally outweighed whatever I was intimidated by. And so I went to Costco. I bought myself a camera and a bunch of film. Digital photography had not come out. I just started teaching myself how to take photos. I only ever meant for it to be this therapeutic process for me because I was always on stage telling my story. And now like I got to be behind the camera and tell Pascaline's story. Back then, no one was taking photos at the park. It was a completely novel idea to meet someone at the park and have them take photos of your family. And so friends started asking me to do that. And I just had so much fun, like focusing on their story. But I never in a million years planned that God would just literally light it on fire and it become all that it has. That truth that I found that kept me coming back to photography, kept me wanting to learn more, understand more, is when I realized that shadows define the light. And that where a shadow falls is literally where that line of light is. You need the two to create a photo with emotion, with passion. And all of a sudden, it just became this metaphor for me in life of like, oh my gosh, what if I stopped expending so much energy on trying to get the shadows out of my life and just let them actually like into the light and let the light define and the shadows define exactly where God has drawn what he's drawn in me, in my heart, and all of those things. And so that's where it all started. And honestly, I don't get a chance to even share this piece very often, but my desire originally was to be an evangelist, to be a speaker and a writer. It wasn't to be a photographer. For almost 20 years, always this battle in my head of like, God, why do you keep blessing this the way you are? I want to be a speaker and I want to be a writer. And I kept speaking in the photography world, but I still just felt like, when do I just get to freely talk about you? When do I get to get back to that? I just think it's fascinating that in every season of photography, God was preparing me, teaching me. It was a season where my husband and I did high-end weddings. You only get one kiss. You only get one shot. $1 million has gone into this single day. And so that the first time I ever was on TV and I only got one shot and millions of people were going to see it, God had totally used those years of doing those weddings to prepare me for TV, how everything built on itself to like what we're doing now. And just feeling like, oh, this is what it was all unto, to help people heal, to help rewire their brain, to help them see themselves truly for how you see them. Okay, I get it. But to just be honest of the tug of war of not getting it for so long, but knowing I have to be obedient. This is so clearly him. I have to keep going forward.
That's such a powerful story, and I can relate to it in so many different ways. Just a little tiny tidbit about myself. I was in corporate America for years. I wrote out my whole vision board as they do and my manifestation list and said that I was going to leave corporate America. And I remember my husband reading this list and he goes, that's 6 months from now. And I said, well, we'll just wait and see. And the Lord orchestrated in such a way that I was able to step away from it, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I'd always been someone who did a lot of presentations and public speaking and things like that. But I always said to myself, I'm not perfect. I don't have a middle America accent. I've got this Southern twang. There's nothing I can do to get rid of it. Just so many things that I felt like were working against me. And you talk about evangelism. My grandmother was this amazing pastor. And I kept hearing the Lord talk to me about things like that. And I was like, Lord, are you wanting me to start a church? I do not understand what you're asking me to do. I know that you want me to do something in some capacity that honors you. I just don't know what. But if you're talking about a church, I'm not equipped for that. And I remember being in a shower and saying to the Lord, okay, can you just tell me what is that you want me to do? Can you be more specific?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing the Lord say, you're thinking too small. Feeling this overcome me. You're thinking too small. And I ran out and I told my husband what I heard. And he goes, okay. And so through a series of events, I came back in contact with a friend of mine. And we decided we would join forces and she would be the producer and I would be the voice of this podcast. Even through trying to walk out what the Lord is telling me to do, still having that insecurity in my mind, but getting to a point where it's like, you know what? The very thing that you are the most insecure about, your southernness, you're just this little Black girl from the South, that's your distinctiveness.
Yes.
Embrace that. Long story, I apologize. But so much of what you said just resonated with me in my own story, which is even if you don't know, just keep going.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Yes. Just let him show you how out of the box he is. I'll never forget being in New York and I was there speaking for Sony at North America's largest photography convention. So there's 30,000 people that come to this convention. And I will never forget this woman coming into the audience towards the end of my talk. I could tell she was waiting until everyone was done talking to me afterwards to just have that FaceTime alone time. And she asked me, are you the photographer who's always teaching photo tips on these morning shows, like Live with Kelly and Mark? And I just remember going, yeah. Because morning shows are just chaos. They're just a circus. And I feel like I'm teaching these very simple tips. I don't know why God has put me on the show, but it's obviously God, right? Because how many thousands of photographers are in New York and yet they're flying me in over 10 years to keep doing their morning show. When I said to her, yes, that's me, she starts crying. And she says, this is going to sound so weird, but I've recorded all of your segments. Every morning as the kids are getting ready for school, I play them in our home. I don't know what it is, but there's something about your voice that is healing our home. And I literally felt like in that moment, God was like, I don't even need you to say my name, Mira. I just need you to be obedient because I am doing things so beyond what you can even fathom. I just need you to say yes. I just need you to show up and trust that I'm not wasting anything that you're doing. This is all for so much more than you can even fathom. That was just such a huge moment.
You've just built my confidence so much just in this time that we've been together. I know you're fantastic at building confidence and you do these confidence workshops. And so when you see other women, they're rising, they're working to reclaim their voice and they're finding their healing. How does it make you feel when you see women doing that through a non-traditional space and doing that through their creativity?
My favorite 5 words in the Bible is, in the beginning, God created. He created. It's the first thing he did, right? And so to be able to create a space for women to feel free to tap into that creativity, to collaborate with their creator. And women in particular, we do not credit ourselves as much as we really should, because whether you have had a baby physically or not, women are designed to create new life in the dark. We don't even need to know what it's unto. We don't need to understand how it's even happening. Our body physically is designed to create and form life in the dark. And so to help women be able to tap into that you intuitively understand way more than you logically are able to even stay caught up with, but to trust that, to press into the dark and to grow your confidence in that space. And the best thing about confidence is that it bleeds into everything else. Mom gets confidence and the kids get confidence. Husband gets confidence. It just impacts the home. It changes the atmosphere in the home. Confidence cannot be contained. It is just too sticky. It just multiplies. Being able to use the camera as a vehicle to help women access that has been amazing. We used to do these 2-day confidence photography workshops for women all over the country for like 15 years. And it was just called confidence. And the reason it was called confidence is because I struggled with confidence. And so, you know how you can pick a word for the year?
Yeah.
One year I picked the word confidence because I needed to really work on my confidence. Then I just decided, let's just name that workshop, the confidence workshop. And it just resonated with so many people.
Yeah.
The more I stepped into it, the more I embraced and empowered it, the more I began to embody it. It wasn't because I felt confident to begin with. And so what is it in you that you are meant to create, that you are meant to spend time in the dark with, that you're meant to grow with, that is not even like clear yet? Would you do that? Would you give that to yourself and let yourself create that new life and collaborate with your creator, tapping into that energy with him that is going to not only surprise you, but I believe will birth something in you that you don't even know you're carrying right now. It's almost like when we're pregnant and we haven't taken the blood test yet for the pregnancy test, but just because we haven't taken the test to actually see like the blue line, it doesn't change that we haven't already been pregnant for like however many weeks, right? And so I just believe women are pregnant with vision. They're pregnant with creativity, with things that are outside of the box. If anyone is meant to go outside of the box, to me, it's women. That is our comfort zone because of how God shaped us, how God created us. And so what is that word that he's been speaking to you? And it's different for everybody. And it changes throughout life. For that season, for sure, it was confidence and being able to impart that to as many women as we could through photography.
I'm going to take that back and say, Lord, what is the word? Because I know there is one, but what is the word for me?
This has been such an incredible conversation. To close us out, I want to ask you, if you could sit with your younger self or even someone listening right now who has a big dream, what words of wisdom would you share?
2 different things. I've always been very persistent in finding mentors. If they don't pick up the phone, I will call them and call them for 6 months. I think that there are people that we hear, that we meet, maybe we read their book or something, and like they just stand out in a unique way, and God just deposits something into us. And it's not everyone, it's not every book you read, but there have been like different people throughout the last 30 years that they just stood out to me. And I'm like, I need to just be persistent and keep calling, keep emailing, because there's something that they have to deposit into me. There's something more I have to learn from them. One of those people in particular, I called him for over 6 months. He finally answered the phone and he was like, "Hey, you remind me of my wife. I just realized I'm not going to get rid of you." I didn't even have the money to afford what he charged for coaching or mentoring. I think it was like $10,000 for an hour. But I knew that there was something that I was supposed to learn or glean from him. And then once I had those things, we kind of like went our separate ways. Those people are busy. Like, I just did the Women Evolve conference, right? And there was 20,000 women in that audience, and there's like over 700 messages to respond to. I'm making my way through them. My team's helping me with some of them. But if you feel like you're supposed to connect with someone, continue to pursue that person and not take it personal if they're busy or it takes 6 months to get back to you. Honestly, that's how we got our work featured on Oprah. 2 years of me emailing every month again and again and again. So persistence is key. If there is something that I wish I knew back then, to find every opportunity to practice doing what you feel like you're headed towards. If you feel like you're meant to be a speaker, to get in front of every audience, no matter how big or small, until you have practiced it so that when God opens the opportunity, you're ready for it. I remember in college when I graduated, I wanted to be an evangelist. I wanted to be a speaker and a writer, but I didn't have my first book out yet. They would ask me what I'm going to speak about, and I didn't really know, to be honest. And I will never forget having lunch with someone who I really looked up to, who was an evangelist. And he said to me the thing I did not want to hear. He said, "Well, you should go back to school and get your master's in teaching, because if you can hold the audience of a middle school or high school class, you'll be fine in front of any other audience."
Interesting.
I did awful in school. Like, I have a handful of learning disabilities. I never got above a C in school. It was so much harder to get through college than the average person that going back to graduate school was like my worst nightmare. But God would just not open any other doors. Eventually, I went back and I got my master's in teaching, and I taught high school language arts, public speaking, middle school for 7 years. I finished my first book, and those kids prepared me for any audience, because you have to earn it. They're a capture audience for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Whether it was not looking interested, like looking like they're falling asleep, or actually sleeping, but I still have to deliver a message. That prepared me so much for any audience I would have in the future. So how can you practice what you are called to do in small ways now? Where can you clock your hours? Where can you get that practice in?
Yeah. I just want to say, Mira, thank you so much. Today has been beyond a blessing. I appreciate you in so many different ways. And I appreciate your patience. I know you're a mom. I got my daughter running in the background. It's just a lot going on. So
I love it. I love it though. How amazing is that? She's getting to see you build your dream. Giving your kids a front row seat to you stepping out in a way that makes you nervous is probably the best thing you can ever give your kids. I think too often, like, we feel guilty that we're staying up late at night working on something. No. This is your kids' chance to have a front row at what it really takes to build a dream, the sacrifice, the cost of it, the ups and downs of it, and to know, like, when they do it, and they go up and down with it, and they're up late at night and they're not sure what they're doing, they can be like, "Oh, okay, I saw my mom do this, and this is just part of it." I love that she is just running around and playing around you, because she will never forget it. Bernitha, she'll never forget that season when her mom did a podcast and being able to play around you stepping out into that space. I think that's holy ground.
wow, I appreciate that, because my mom guilt is real these days. I'm always doing 15 different things, making bacon and taking a call. And so I appreciate that. Mira, thank you so much. Humbled is not even the word.
I loved it. Thank you. Thank you. Your questions were so fun. We just pray in agreement that this would activate every single thing that every listener is needing right now in their own way. What is that thing, that word, that theme in your life right now, in your next chapter that God keeps putting in front of you? He's just waiting.
Thank you for being a guest on the Bernitha Renee Relates podcast. You have a great rest of your day.
I pray this conversation and this whole first season of the Bernitha Renee Relates podcast has inspired you the way it has inspired me. It's really helped me to understand that you can be the light despite your shadows, or maybe even because of your shadows. And so I just want to say thank you so much, every single listener. Know that I pray for you every single night. And if you enjoyed season 1, season 2 of this podcast is going to blow your mind. Please remember to follow me on Instagram at Bernitha Renee Relates and Facebook at Bernitha Renee Relates. And of course, like, subscribe, and share this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. Thanks for listening. I love you for it. We'll see you back for season 2. Take care. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
What's been done is done again. Same old story, different pen. Yeah. We love, we make mistakes, trying to learn from what life takes. We love, we make mistakes, trying to learn from what life takes. Let's contemplate. Can we relate? Under the sun, it all feels the same. You and me, just different names. Let's contemplate. Can we relate? Yeah. Let's contemplate. Can we relate?